President Chinchilla for 5 minutes and a testimony.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman Cires, Ranking Member Green, distinguished members of the subcommittee. Thank you for the invitation. Nicaragua is at the edge of a precipice with no return. We are only 6 weeks away from the likely consolidation of a ruthless, corrupt, dynastic dictatorship in the heart of the Americas. It will occur despite the multiple resolutions approved by the United Nations Human Rights Council and the General Assembly and Permanent Council of the OAS. Beyond the suffering of the Nicaraguan people, and we just have this testimony, this dismal situation will have a destabilizing impact for the rest of the Central America and the entire hemisphere. Some of the consequences are, first, an increase in forced migration. More than 100,000 Nicaraguans have migrated since April 2018, when the last wave of political repression started. Over 80% of this migration has gone to Costa Rica, my country. However, these flows are turning to the United States of America. It is expected that in 2021, at least 60,000 Nicaraguans will be apprehended at the United States-Mexico border. Second, a disruption in regional trade, a deeper crisis in Nicaragua will hinder the economic reactivation urgently needed by neighboring countries, given that the economies of Central America are highly integrated. Third, an invigoration of undemocratic ruling. Ortega's re-election in a rigged process, particularly after openly defying calls from the international community to correct course, will incentivize other autocratic rulers in Central America and beyond to abandon even the semblance of democracy. Finally, a threat to regional security. Ortega's military strategy of increasing cooperation with Russia risks altering the reasonable balance of forces in Central America. Nicaragua's territory is also being used to protect Central America fugitives from justice, something which is likely to increase. To face these major challenges and risks, I respectfully recommend, number one, to request relevant national and international organizations, including the OAS, to issue updated and reliable reports as soon as possible, documenting the human rights violations and exposing the electoral farce of the regime. Number two, to work towards invocation of Article 21 of the Inter-American Democratic Charter to suspend Nicaragua from the exercise of its right to participate in the OAS. Number three, to align actions of international financial institutions to the findings and recommendations of regional organizations on human rights and democracy in order to stop immediately the external supply of financial oxygen to the Ortega regime. Number four, to eliminate all the support to the Nicaraguan army, a key player in the endurance of the regime, including the support via the U.S. Southern Command. Number five, to investigate Ortega's, Murillo's, families, associates, and businesses for money laundering and drug trafficking, giving prior sanctions on Ortega's son for this kind of crimes. Number six, to increase humanitarian aid for Nicaraguans in exile and for countries receiving immigrants, especially Costa Rica and Panama, including COVID-19 vaccine relief. And finally, to urgently articulate a more coherent, consistent diplomatic offensive with allies in the Western Hemisphere and in the rest of the world to avoid the electoral fraud, or, failing that, to deny the legitimacy to the government resulting from it. Ortega must pay a heavy price for installing a North Korean-style regime in our region. Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, democracy in Nicaragua is perishing in broad daylight. It is dying as the hemisphere commemorates 20 years of the declaration of the Inter-American Democratic Charter. Unless this is stopped, it would call into question the effectiveness of our regional instruments and commitments to protect and defend democracy. Action is needed, and it is urgent now. I deeply hope that our next steps will live up to our commitments with democracy. Thank you.
Thank you, President Chinchilla.